Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. You know, folks, as the investigation of the attempted Donald Trump assassination, more and more information is coming out as the investigation proceeds. I always preach to everyone that investigation takes time. And if you want accurate, true information, you have to wait patiently to hear the time frame of the investigation. You can't demand it immediately. But something very interesting occurred. The Secret Service sniper, as you see with the thumbnail on the screen, who fired the shot that killed Thomas Crooks, he demands 5 people be fired for Trump's shooting. And he also states in his text message or his email, we have fallen short for years. So systemically, bureaucratically, is there something very, very, very wrong with the Secret Service? Well, that's what the sniper who wrote this letter, and according to Newsweek, a Secret Service counter sniper is demanding that 5 high-level supervisors be fired in the wake of the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, warning that another attempt could come before November's election, a leaked email says. This agency needs to change, if not now, when? The counter sniper wrote to the agency's uniform division, according to the email obtained by Susan Crabtree, Real Clear Politics, White House and national political correspondent. The next assassination attempt in 30 days, because we all should expect another attempt to happen before November. The email continues, failure is not an option. And on 7/13/24, we failed, not because of commitment or sense of dedication, but because our supervisors, AKA leadership, knew better and thought our concerns were less than important. So what this sniper is saying is that they perhaps had told their supervisors that this isn't good. We need to correct this. We need to correct that. And it went on deaf ears. This is according to this email by the sniper, who actually remains, I'm sure everyone knows his name, but remains unnamed in this Newsweek article. According to the email, the counter sniper has refused to stop speaking out until those individuals are removed from their positions, noting that one has already left. That would, of course, be Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle. The sniper does not specify who this individual is. However, Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle resigned last week after facing bipartisan criticism over the security lapses that allowed a sniper to fire at Trump just 147 yards from where he was standing on stage at a Butler, Pennsylvania rally on July 13th. Ronald Rowe has since become the acting Secret Service Director. He appeared before senators on Tuesday, calling the assassination attempt a failure of the agency. This is an agency, a proud agency, the Secret Service, that goes back hundreds of years. And failure is not an option. Failure means, in this instance, 4 people were shot. 1, a former president who was in an election campaign for president, and 3 civilians. 1 who lost his life, Corey Competor, and 2 other individuals, David Dutch and James Koppenhaver. So that is failure. That is what failure smells like. You know, there used to be a term on the NYPD that a million attaboys, meaning attaboy, good job, doesn't equal 1 shit. And I always loved that expression because it's so true. You can do 1,000 things right, but you'll always be remembered for the things that you do or have done wrong. And that will always stay with you. And in this incident, there was a failure. There was a huge failure, and everyone acknowledges it. However, failure is not an option in this business. So, folks, hold on to your hats, hold on to your toupee, hold on to your wig, hold on to your service dog, hold on to your neighbor, hold on to your cup of coffee or your glass of wine, whatever you need to hold on to that makes you feel secure. Because you're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have a car stop in 10th and Ranch, Michael Byler.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
You know, folks, the acting Secret Service director has publicly said that he was ashamed of the protection failures on July 13th.
He cannot defend why the roof used by the gunman in the assassination attempt of former President Trump was not secured. Ronald Rowe is testifying before two Senate committees this morning. He said he recently traveled to the Pennsylvania shooting site and says he was ashamed by what he saw. Meanwhile, the FBI's number 2 official revealed new information about the shooter's possible social media posts from 2019 and 2020 that could point to his motive or his mind frame.
Some of these comments, if ultimately attributable to the shooter, appear to reflect anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes, to espouse political violence, and are described as extreme in nature.
Meanwhile, Senator Dick Durbin asked if lessons learned from the assassination attempt will be taken into account for the security planning of the DNC in Chicago. Both men responded yes.
Watch break.
So again, the acting Secret Service director, of course, he's got some hell of a job ahead of him right now, because he's got to pick up the pieces. He's got to pick up the pieces of what occurred. And even though it may not be his fault, but he has to answer for all the failures of this day, July 13th, in which a 20-year-old would-be active shooter by the name of Thomas Crooks, who we see laying on this rooftop here, thwarted a proud agency known as the Secret Service and was able to get onto that roof unmolested to fire 8 shots before he was taken out by the sniper. And had that sniper not been quick and not been good at his job, many, many more people would have been killed during this incident, because I have no doubts that this sniper, Thomas Crooks, was an active shooter and would have kept shooting till he was stopped. And luckily, he was stopped. And this was a security disaster. And one of the biggest things that we want to hear about was disastrous communication led to a shooting that should have never, ever happened. How do you have disastrous communication at a rally for a presidential candidate? How do you allow a 20-year-old seen on this thumbnail defeat the entire Secret Service? How do you not do a proper inspection of the site and identify a rooftop that is a vulnerability? How do you not do that? And these are some of the questions we all have, and we are all baffled by it. And of course, we've watched some of these interviews that get quite contentious in Congress and in the Senate now. Senator Ted Cruz yesterday grilling the acting head of the Secret Service in this.
The outset that the individual Secret Service agents demonstrated remarkable personal courage, putting their bodies in between the line of sight of the shooter and the president. That being said, the bravery of the line agents is quite different from the decisions of Secret Service leadership. Secret Service leadership committed catastrophic security failures. Indeed, the worst security failures for the Secret Service since 1981, since the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan. It is incumbent upon this committee to determine why those security failures happened. Just after the shooting, Secret Service put out an official statement from your spokesperson that says there's an untrue assertion that a member of the former president's team requested additional security resources and that those were rebuffed. This is absolutely false. In fact, we added protective resources and technology and capabilities as part of the increased campaign travel tempo. Was this tweet accurate?
With respect to Butler, Pennsylvania, it is accurate, sir.
It is accurate that the Trump team had not asked for additional security and had not been rebuffed.
If you're talking about Butler, Pennsylvania, all assets requested were approved. If you're talking about the media reporting of assets requested, there were times when assets were unavailable and not able to be filled, and those gaps were staffed with state and local law enforcement tactical assets.
So I'm reading from the Washington Post, July 20th, 2024. Secret Service said to have denied requests for more security at Trump events. The opening paragraph, top officials of the U.S. Secret Service repeatedly denied requests for additional resources and personnel sought by Donald Trump's security detail in the 2 years leading up to his attempted assassination, according to 4 people familiar with the requests. Is that right, that repeatedly the Trump detail asked for more resources and repeatedly Secret Service leadership turned that down?
That is not accurate, Senator. Assets are requested. There's a process that is made. And
how many requests did the Trump team or the Trump detail ask for?
I can get you that number in a queue.
You don't know now.
So I can speak to the ones that reported in the Washington Post, and we can go through them if you like.
But you don't know how many requests there were.
In general, how many requests since 2021 that the former Trump detail has made a request for assets?
You've had 2 weeks. You had a spokesperson put something out that is false on its face. By the way, did you approve this statement when it went out?
I don't know if I did or didn't, Senator.
Has this spokesperson, is he still employed? Does he still have a job?
He is still employed, Senator.
So he lied on behalf of the Secret Service. He still has a job. Did your predecessor, the former director, did she approve this statement?
Senator, our comms team, they send out statements, they do deconflict them, and they put them out.
Did she approve this statement?
I don't know if she did or did not, Senator.
And you don't know if you did either?
I don't recall approving it, Senator.
Will you commit to provide this committee in writing every written request for additional resources from the Trump campaign or the Trump detail and every response from Secret Service?
Senator, I will commit to providing responses and getting you the information that you are seeking.
Let me ask you something. And who makes the decision to deny those requests? Did you make that decision?
Which requests? Are you talking about the ones that were in the
Any of
Washington
them.
Post?
Yes.
So the process, sir, is that a detail will make a request for either staffing, technical assets, that is handled between the field office and the detail. It goes up to a logistics office between our
Okay,
office
so
of
there's a bureaucracy. Is there a decision maker?
It's not a bureaucracy, Senator.
Give me
It's
the
a
person that's
process.
a decision maker. Is there one?
Senator, it's a conversation. It's not just an absolute yay or nay.
So let me tell you what I believe. I believe that the Secret Service leadership made a political decision to deny these requests. And I think the Biden administration has been suffused with partisan politics. Did the same person who denied the request for additional security to President Trump also repeatedly deny the request for security to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose father was murdered by an assassin and whose uncle was murdered by an assassin? Did the same person make that decision?
Senator, what I will tell you is that Secret Service agents are not political.
Okay, you're not answering my question. But you know what?
I'll get to your
Leadership appointed by
answer,
the
Senator,
president.
if you allow
Leadership
me
appointed
to.
by the president is political. I have a simple question, yes or no. Did the same person deny the Trump request that also denied the RFK request? That's a yes or no question.
Senator, that is not a yes or no question. One, There is a process for a candidate nominee to receive protection.
Does the buck stop anywhere? Does the buck stop anywhere?
Bipartisan process that the Hill
It's a
participates
bicameral, bipartisan process. What camera?
for a candidate.
You
for
are
a
not a
candidate
Congress. You don't
protectee.
have a camera.
Mr. Kennedy submitted a request that was referred over to the CPAC.
Okay, you're refusing to answer the question. Let me ask, because the
As you could see, this gets pretty contentious, and you know, it's if it's not political, the Secret Service force, the security force you get from Secret Service, then why? My question is, then why was Robert F. Kennedy denied Secret Service protection? He is a candidate. Is it because people in power obviously don't want him to run? But is that a reason to deny him? What are the criteria to receive Secret Service protection? Now, the new acting, Ronald Rowe is the acting Secret Service director right now. And obviously, he's got his work cut out for him. He, as you see on this screen with Senator Cruz, he's taking a beating for things that perhaps he was not responsible for. But now he took the reins of this horse and he has to gallop into the sunset and figure out all the things that went wrong and correct these things and make sure that it never happens again. Let's go back, because this is pretty contentious with Senator Cruz. And I just want everyone to also know that these hearings in Congress and before the Senate, they get very political. It's like theater. But one of the things that it does do in situations like this, it does shine a light on things that perhaps we wouldn't find out if these leaders were not brought in front of Congress or brought in front of the Senate. You saw Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle, and it was brutal. It was brutal watching her testify and all the things that she did not know and did not have answers to. Similarly, and I know I had Bobby Chacon on the other night, retired FBI agent. Similarly, when we watched the testimony of FBI Director Christopher Wray, I wasn't, and I know he's a career FBI agent. He's got tremendous credentials, but I was not that impressed with his testimony either. I believe that there were many questions he didn't have the answer to. And to me, I believe he testified 10, 11, 12 days after the event. I felt that he should have had all of his notes and every possible question they could have asked him. I think he should have been able to answer, and he did not. He was not able to answer all those questions. Let's go back to Ted Cruz. And again, I want everyone to realize a lot of this stuff is very theatrical and it is so political. You've seen people when Christopher Wray was interviewed just make political statements. Same thing when Kimberly Cheadle. Let's stay with the point. You know, it's really a little bit crazy, you know. So here we go back to Senator Cruz.
The failures on that day were catastrophic. By the way, is it true that on the day of the Butler event that Secret Service transferred agent from President Trump to the First Lady?
No, sir, that's not true.
That's been widely reported.
It's not true. There was one airport agent that actually went on the manpower request for the Trump detail. They handled the arrival at the airport.
What was the
and
relative size of the Trump detail compared to the detail that is assigned to the President or the First Lady?
Senator, the former president travels with a full shift, just like the president.
What's so the exact same size? Is that your testimony that President Trump had the same size detail that President Biden has?
On the day of in Butler, the agents surrounding him, it is the same number of agents surrounding the president today. There is a difference between a sitting president who also not only
Hold on, you're using president in a way that is not clear. Is it your testimony that in Butler, Pennsylvania, Donald Trump had the same number of agents protecting him that Joe Biden has at a comparable event?
I'm telling you the shift, the close protection shift surrounding.
That's yes
what
or
you
no?
asked me, Senator, and I'm trying to answer it.
You are not answering it. Is it the same number of agents or not?
Senator, there is a difference between the sitting president of the United States.
Then what's the difference?
The difference?
2x, 3x, 5x,
National
10x?
Command Authority to launch a nuclear strike, sir.
I'm not
there are other
asking.
assets
How many
that
more
travel with
agents?
the president that
Sir,
the former president will
you are
not get.
refusing to
But
answer
the number
straight.
of Secret Service
Sir,
agents protecting him.
Stop interrupting me.
Go ahead,
You are
Senator.
refusing to answer clear and direct questions. I am asking the relative difference in the number of agents between those assigned to Donald Trump and those assigned to Joe Biden. I'm not asking why you assign more to Joe Biden. I'm asking, is the difference, is it 2x? Is it 3x? Is it 5x? Is it 10x?
Senator, I will get you that number so you can see it with your own eyes.
So this, as you can see, this gets quite contentious, and that's the new acting director. His name is Ronald Rowe, and I wouldn't want to be sitting in his seat right now, answering these questions from both sides. Very uncomfortable. It's hard to answer for failures, perhaps that weren't even your failures, but yet you're part of this organization, so you have to answer the failures. So, I want to go back to the email written by the unnamed sniper that wrote this. Things erupted. Well, Ronald Rowe has since become the acting Secret Service director, as we just saw. He appeared before senators on Tuesday, calling the assassination attempt a failure of the agency. Things erupted, as we saw with Senator Josh Hawley. I'm going to play some of that press row on why certain individuals had not been relieved of duty. The acting director responded, "I will tell you, Senator, that I will not rush to judgment, that people will be held accountable, and I will do so with integrity and not rush to judgment and put people unfairly prosecuted." The unnamed counter sniper said in the email that his team was viewed by many as guys who sit on the roof and don't do much, but stressed that the Secret Service responsibility was not to protect an empty White House located at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, but to prevent and stop another JFK-style assassination in whatever city that may be. Sadly, we've fallen short for years. We just got lucky and looked good doing it. The email said it added that the individuals had conveyed these thoughts to both supervisors and training teams who brushed off his concerns as if those with less experience somehow knew more than me. The team I was once proud to be part of is something I have to now somehow hide as I move into my next career, the email read. Who wants to hire U.S. Secret Service counter sniper guy who failed? That's the public perception I'm now faced with. The U.S. Secret Service counter sniper team is a stain I will never be able to cleanse. Multiple investigations into the assassination attempt are ongoing. And that was the email from this sniper, who obviously is quite upset because this is an organization that, as is reported, failure is just not an option. Failure is not an option in this business, and it's something that this poor guy, and I feel bad for acting director Ronald Rowe. He has to answer for perhaps the failures of the previous boss, Kimberly Cheadle. But is this endemic to this organization? Is the whole organization bad? Is it rotten from the head of the fish down? This is Josh Hawley, and he always gets contentious in his questioning, no matter who he's questioning. So let's play a little bit of this here.
We're not a Secret Service counter sniper on that roof.
So, Senator, we're when we post up, our methodology is to look at things that can see in on our protectees, so that they can provide that coverage.
But why is there not a Secret Service counter sniper there with clear line of sight? That roof has a clear line of sight to the former president. Why didn't you put a Secret Service counter sniper there?
The Secret Service's counter sniper role is to neutralize those threats that are looking in on us from where the protectee is, not necessarily.
You think maybe you might want to revise that protocol in light of what happened here?
They were protecting the principal, and I think the
principal got shot.
I understand that, sir.
So do you think you might want to revise the protocol? Let me ask you this. Who was the lead site agent who made the decision to leave the AGR building completely outside of the security perimeter? Who was that?
Senator, I cannot give you that name. This person is operational. They're still doing investigations. They're still doing protective visits.
Have they been relieved of duty?
Senator, they have not
I know
been
their
relieved
name,
of
by
duty.
the way. Why have they not been relieved of duty?
They are still cooperating, not only being interviewed by the FBI, but also by our Office of Professional Responsibility. And we will let the facts of the mission assurance and any further investigations play out.
Isn't the fact that a former president was shot, that a good American is dead, that other Americans were critically wounded, isn't that enough mission failure for you to say that the person who decided that that building should not be in the security perimeter probably ought to be stepped down?
Senator, I think you're using the word decided, and I think we need to allow the investigation play out to include.
So who did make the decision then? If it wasn't the lead site agent, who made the decision not to put that in the security perimeter?
Senator, you're zeroing in on one particular agent. I want to find out exactly what was the entire decision process. So I think I want to be neutral and make sure that we get to the bottom of it and interview everybody in order to determine if there was more than one person who perhaps exercised bad judgment.
Well, sure. My question is, why don't you relieve everybody of duty who made bad judgment? So yeah, you're right. I am zeroing in on somebody. I'm trying to find somebody who's accountable here.
And
you're telling me that the person who made the decision not to include this in the perimeter has not been relieved of duty. What about the person who's in charge of the interoperability of radio frequencies between local law enforcement and Secret Service? Has that person been relieved of duty?
No, Senator, because interoperability is a challenge, is a greater challenge than just one person. On that day, we had a counterpart system. It failed
As the
spectacularly.
person who made the decision to send Donald Trump onto stage knowing that you had a security situation, has that person been relieved of duty?
No, sir, they haven't.
Has the person who decided not to pull the former president off of stage when you knew that, in your words, the locals were working a serious security situation, has that person been relieved of duty?
No, sir. Again, I refer you back to my original answer that we are investigating this through a mission assurance. And as opposed to zeroing in on one,
what more do you need to investigate to know
exactly what the decision-making process was?
What more do you need to investigate to know that there were critical enough failures that some individuals ought to be held accountable? I mean, what more do you need to know?
What I need to know is exactly what happened, and I need my investigators to do their job. And I cannot.
A lot of people didn't do their jobs.
I cannot put my thumb on the scale. Otherwise,
what do you mean put your thumb on the scale?
You're asking me, Senator, to completely make a rush to judgment about somebody failing. I acknowledge.
You know, I think what the public wants, and I think what Senator Hawley here wants, is that I think the Secret Service probably could have assessed who had the most responsibility for the screw-ups that day. And of course, the very top of the Secret Service, which is Kimberly Cheadle, the former director, she's resigned. Now we want to have the on-site bosses. And we could identify those. And you don't have to identify them in this Senate hearing by name. But the acting director can surely identify those. And I think it would feel better for the public and for this investigation that, in so many words, you took them off the road right now. Lay them down. Take them off with pay, inactive duty till this investigation is through, because it just seems like to the public and to the people demanding answers in this investigation that we're not getting answers and that there's been no accountability for this. And I think that's what Senator Hawley is attacking Ronald Rowe here, acting director Ronald Rowe. And it's quite contentious and sometimes a little bit tough to watch.
This was a failure of the
Is it not prima facie that somebody has failed? A former president was shot.
Sir, this could have been our Texas school book depository. I have lost sleep over that for the last 17 days,
Then
just like you
fire
have.
somebody to
And I will
hold them
tell you,
accountable.
Senator, I will tell you, Senator, that I will not rush to judgment, that people will be held accountable, and I will do so with integrity. and not rush to judgment and put people
I can't believe
unfairly
that you
persecuted.
are unfairly persecuted.
Unfairly,
We've got people
sir.
who are
We
dead.
have to be able to have a proper investigation into this, Senator.
You said earlier that you've got to make sure that your protocols are followed, and unless there's a protocol violation, people wouldn't be disciplined. I would just say to you, I don't really care that much about your protocols. I think if your protocols don't provide for the fact that when a former president is shot, when an American is killed, when other rally goers, innocent people who just showed up on the day, when they are shot at and critically wounded, if that isn't a protocol violation prima facie, you should revise your protocols.
Senator, I think this is where you and I agree. This was a failure, and we will get to the bottom of it.
Well, I hope you're going to do something about it. Let me ask you something else.
Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, hit the like button, share us with your friends and your family. If you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels, and we also have a YouTube channel membership with 5 different levels of our channel memberships. We appreciate all our fans, our friends, our subscribers who keep this show going and keep it what it is. And the people in the chat seem to all love each other and love being here, and I appreciate that. I'm going to go back to Senator Hawley because this, one of the things I think we all look at also is many of you, I don't think, understand civil service. All right. When they talk about fire that agent, then they can't fire them. They can relieve them of their duties. They can force them to resign. They can force them to retire, but they're not going to just like in the private sector when someone just gets fired. Secret Service law makes it almost impossible to fire someone unless they do something so outrageous that then they could actually be fired. But in these instances, no. Kami, thank you so much for the 99 super sticker. Much appreciated. Let's go back to Josh Hawley and his questioning here.
The Real Clear Politics reports this morning that you were directly involved in denying additional security resources and personnel, including counter snipers, not just to this event, but over the last 2 years that President Trump's team repeatedly asked for these additional resources, and you personally were involved in denying them. Is that true?
Senator, as I stated earlier, that is not true.
So you never denied any resources to former President Trump's team?
No, not me. No, sir.
And
Not
you
personally.
weren't involved in any of that? You
No,
were never
sir, I
involved
was
in the
not.
decision making?
No, sir, I was not.
Let me ask you just 1 or 2 other things here quickly. Well, whistleblowers tell me that, in fact, law enforcement were stationed to be on that roof and that law enforcement abandoned their post because it was too hot. Is that accurate?
Senator, I have heard that as well. Again, they posted up inside. And I think moving forward, as I said earlier, we're going to ensure that state and local counter snipers are on roofs.
But do you know if someone was supposed to be on the roof? Do you know if someone was in fact? That's what the whistleblowers tells me. That may or may not be accurate. Do you know that to be the fact? Was somebody posted to the roof, local law enforcement or whomever?
I do not know that to be a fact.
Well, can I ask you why you don't know that?
Again, Senator, we are looking at this, and they should have been on that roof. And the fact that they were in the building is something that I'm still trying to understand.
I just want to express my frustration, Director, that 17 days or whatever it's been, that whistleblowers are telling us more than you are, and you don't know, you haven't ascertained if there was supposed to be law enforcement on the roof. That seems like a pretty basic fact. I'm also told that local law enforcement suppliers offered the Secret Service drones, and you declined them. Is that true?
So, Senator, one, I've been very transparent and forthcoming.
Let's not go there.
I have been forthcoming, sir.
That remains to be seen. You've been on the job a few days. So far, you fired nobody. Now, the drones.
Thank you,
Were you offered drones?
Senator
So
Hawley.
there was an offer to fly a drone on that day.
And why did you deny it?
Again, I think the ability of local law enforcement to provide an asset, we probably should have taken them up on it if it was offered.
So that was the testimony of acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe, who obviously I don't think anyone would want his job right now, but he's been a career Secret Service officer. You know, and one of the things I think that what we also want to know is, does anyone out there think that the Secret Service can investigate themselves? Does anyone think that the FBI can and should be able to investigate the Secret Service? Or is there political problems with that? Someone's saying we have a major sound issue. Is the microphone not sounding okay? That could be the single person. How am I sounding, Carol? Is the sound okay? So Moose Girl 08, exactly. No agency. It was the recording. Okay, I'm sorry about the recording. That was Josh Hawley. So exactly, in this instance, no agency should be investigating themselves. But how do we make sure that the persons that conduct this investigation are not politically involved in this? How do we make sure of that? That is the big question I think that we all have. It's quite the trust level for the American people. I don't think they want to hear that the Secret Service has revamped all their procedures, and they've changed everything up after discovering this and discovering that, because I don't think that's giving any real accountability. And, you know, to have also the FBI in on this investigation, as we had Christopher Wray the other day. I don't know if many people have a great faith in the FBI either in regards to this. So the big thing that we know, obviously, is whistleblowers are coming to Congress, coming to senators, and saying, this is what's wrong with this organization. The sniper is saying this organization has been a disaster. Gail Hurd, thank you for gifting one police off the cuff membership. Very much appreciated. Thank you so much. The FBI now will be following up with this investigation. Let me play a little bit of this from the FBI, Paul Abady.
To the victims of this heinous attack, to the family and loved ones of heroic firefighter and father Corey Comparator, to Mr. Dutch, to Mr. Koppenhaver, who continue to recover, and to former President Trump, who was also struck by a bullet fired from the shooter's rifle. Our thoughts and prayers are with each of them and their families and loved ones. Within minutes of the attack, the FBI field office in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, received notification of the assassination attempt and responded to the scene immediately with a surge of resources, quickly moving forward on the investigation. From the outset, the FBI has been investigating this attack as an assassination attempt and an act of domestic terrorism. Our team continues to conduct a full, thorough, and objective investigation, and will continue to follow all leads and avenues of investigation to logical conclusion, leaving no stone unturned. While it's not typical to provide details of an ongoing investigation, this, as we all know, is an extraordinarily tragic set of circumstances of the utmost national importance, making it essential to inform the American public and Congress what is known right now with full transparency. The investigation remains focused, of course, on determining motive, identifying any potential co-conspirators or others with knowledge of the attack, and building out a timeline of shooter Thomas Crook's actions in advance of and during the attack. Thus far, though absolutely nothing has been ruled out, the investigation has not identified a motive, nor any co-conspirators or others with advanced knowledge. To date, the FBI team has conducted more than 460 interviews, executed search warrants, including at the shooter's residence, and seized electronic media to include phones, laptops, hard drives, and thumb drives. Legal process has been issued to dozens of companies, and we've received more than 2,000 tips from the public. The full resources of the FBI have been brought to bear in furtherance of the investigation. Agents, analysts, professional staff, experts. I've personally visited the site of this horrific attack and seen firsthand the work of FBI Pittsburgh and our partners on the front line, and want to thank all involved for their ongoing and tireless efforts to get the answers that we need and to deliver justice. Specialized resources deployed included evidence response teams, victim services specialists, laboratory and operational technology division resources to process physical and digital evidence, a shooting reconstruction team. Additionally, our explosive.
You know, we appreciate all of this stuff. And I can see even in the chat, you folks are, I think what we need is a bipartisan investigative body with subpoena power to check on the investigators. Who investigates the investigators? Well, that's why we need a bipartisan senators, congressmen to investigate the investigators, to do them, much like in the Kennedy assassination, the Warren Commission. We need that because people are not going to trust the FBI. They're not going to trust the Secret Service to conduct their own investigation. So where did the investigators start? Well, one of the things I said during this whole case is that the media, who I've always been highly critical of, have done a fantastic job. They have shined a light on this. Pamela White, thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. Thank you, Bill, for this platform to allow us to witness this important meeting. Pamela White, thank you very much. Much appreciated. High Desert Biker from the chat. Police off the cuff. Yes, show us transparency. Everything here does not need to be hidden. They can change facts and things go on. You know something? That's why I think what we do need is a bipartisan investigative body to investigate this. I think you're 100% right because no one is trusting these bodies to investigate themselves. Nate, I hope Bill will talk about his experience with Secret Service in New York. Did they ever have major communication problems or was this an anomaly? Nate, I was not part of the protective detail. I was I wasn't trained in that. Phil Grimaldi, who frequently is a co-host, says in New York, the Secret Service did an exemplary job, an unbelievable job. However, that was many years ago. As leadership goes, so does the organization. Perhaps was the former Secret Service director, Kimberly Cheadle, perhaps she was not a good leader. Perhaps she was not a good head of that organization, even though she performed supposedly pretty well as an agent for almost 30 years or just under that. But perhaps she was a good agent, but not a good leader, because it seems, and again, we started this show with that email from the sniper, that this organization, Charles Nolan, really, Warren Commission, I think that you have to take those blinders off, sir. Charles, what I'm referring to is like it. I didn't say like that exactly like it, but we need a bipartisan 6 Republicans, 6 Democrats to conduct an investigation of the investigators, or else will anyone in this country ever trust the results of this investigation, what the results come back as? Or will we always be questioning what occurred here? And I think that's what we will be. We'll be questioning it unless we can trust the investigation.
Director Rowe, in your testimony here today, as well as in your written testimony, you said very, very clearly that you can't defend why that building with the shooter on top of it was not better covered. You were very clear. You cannot defend that. So my question to you is, my understanding is that there's a detailed site survey that is done prior to an event to identify potential threat points. So talk to me about that site survey. I'm sure you've had a chance to look at it now after action. And how did that site survey get approved when it was so clear that that was a major threat from that building?
Thank you, Senator. So our Pittsburgh field office did the advance. During that advance, not only were they discussing amongst themselves about mitigating the line of sight, but also they were discussing with other agencies that were supporting it. Our counter snipers met with their counterparts. The team lead and team lead met. They walked the site. They identified the AGR building. And if I may, Senator, if I could point out something right now, if I may, and we will place this for the record, but this is the point of view. This is from the second floor of the AGR building. This point of view is the point of view where the counter sniper team locally was posted. The gold arrow indicates where the shooter fired from. Looking left. Why was the assailant not seen? When we were told that building was going to be covered, that there had been a face-to-face that afternoon, that our team leads met, this was the view. Let me show you another view, Senator. B. This view is a reenactment by one of my agents. Laying flat. There was a 5-inch rise on the middle of that roof. The assailant would have had to present his bore over that to get his shot off. The view underneath reflects the perspective that he would have had. Again, I call your attention back to the first exhibit if they'd have looked left. Give me C. This is what our counter sniper team saw. Shooter, no elbows. You barely make out the crown of his head. Below it, the assailant up prone. And let me just tell you, our counter sniper, this individual, I know him. I consider him a friend. He has covered me operationally in conflict zones. And when I did my time on the president's detail, he exemplifies the courage, the skill, and the ability to respond under great stress in such short time to neutralize the threat and prevent further loss of life.
You know, one of the things that, and I can't believe that he's selling this horse shit right now, because first of all, the shooter was spotted 90 minutes before he got up on that roof. You want to talk about the biggest failure? That was the biggest failure. And of course, we saw the text messages sent by the Beaver County Emergency Service Unit, the one sniper that texted that and went home. I mean, you could blame him. Why didn't he face to face? He texted that information. They received it. No one acted upon it. How did they lose Thomas Crooks? How was he allowed to walk freely? He had a rangefinder. That was not suspicious in itself. They sort of cavalierly said, oh, people always bring in rangefinders to rallies where there's a presidential candidate speaking. I found that to be the most outrageous thing, that they had a suspicious individual who was flagged. In fact, he parked his car back where the police snipers had their cars, and the person that sent the text message alerted them. He's out there. He saw me with my rifle. Policing 101, security 101. You got someone suspicious? Put a tail on his ass. Have a cop there. Have a Secret Service agent follow him around. Confront him. And deactivate him for the entire rally. Number two, how do you have someone suspicious out there and then allow the former president to take the stage? How can that be explained? And this acting Secret Service head right now, Ronald Rowe, he seems to be a little bit more combative than he should be. I think he's got to be a little humbler when the agency that he is now the acting head of is being eviscerated by Congress first and now the Senate. and it's very difficult. Sharkman from the chat. So Secret Service never proactive, always reactive. Was that bike his? Where's the supposed backpack? There's many questions, Sharkman, that we don't have, but it's very easy. Tom Keene says Roe needs to go. Wow. Everyone's getting fired these days. But these are some of the questions, and he's coming across pretty aggressively for someone that I think has to be a little more humble than he is. He's being pretty aggressive. And clearly, are you going to really point fingers at the local police? They're not in charge at this incident. You are. You're in charge. So you're going to point fingers? Oh, we told them to do this. Was there anyone who checked to see that they did what you asked them to do? Are there checks and balances, Director Rowe? These are some of the questions I would ask.
Not only did they have embeds from Butler County ESU with them, but they also had radios on the tactical net. It is troubling to me that we did not get that information as quickly as we should have. We didn't know that there was this incident going on, and the only thing we had was that locals were working an issue at the 3 o'clock, which would have been the former president's right-hand side, which is where the shot came. Nothing about man on the roof, nothing about man with a gun. None of that information ever made it over our net.
So that will change?
Yes, sir. We are working right now to figure out the interoperability and also make sure that we do have access to those channels.
That is absolutely horrific. And if you watched the other night when I had Bobby Chacon on, retired FBI agent, who used to run years ago the Oscars and all the major events on the West Coast, and he said they could actually have a whole communication system brought in. So that night of the event, they would have radios that they could disperse out to their partners and other law enforcement agencies. That was 20 years ago. They have the technology to do that. Yet, is there some kind of cultural thing that the Secret Service won't share their radios or their radio frequency? Outrageous communication. Outrageous that you're saying we didn't receive that message. Come on, this is 2024. I mean, outrageous that communication, and that's what you're pointing to. And it's going to be corrected. You bet it better be corrected.
Whether through a counterpart system or some other means.
For the people in my state that keep asking me, I just don't get how he got on the roof. I know we've gone through great details and a lot of examination. Could you just give a minute on what went wrong and how you think it can be fixed? Because I think it's just going to help to dispel the conspiracy theories. There are some people that think it didn't really happen, which of course is completely ridiculous. It did. There are some people that think all kinds of conspiracies went on within the government, which is also false. But could you just tell them what went wrong so they understand?
No, thank you, Senator. I thought long and hard about this. I think this was a failure of imagination, a failure to imagine that we actually do live in a very dangerous world where people do actually want to do harm to our protectees. I think it was a failure to challenge our own assumptions. The assumptions that we know our partners are going to do everything they can, and they do this every day. But we didn't challenge our own assumptions of, we assume that someone's going to cover that. We assume that there's going to be uniform presence. We didn't challenge that internally during that advance. So
when I hear the word assume, I think what every child is taught from day one. When you assume, you make an ass of you and me. And at this level of professional law enforcement, this level of Secret Service that you assumed, are you kidding me? There's a checks and balance to this, and it's called supervision. Supervision. I was a boss on the NYPD for 22 out of my 27 years. And if someone didn't do something after I told them, and if I didn't check to see if they did it, shame on me. Shame on me. That's called supervision. That is called being a good boss. That is called being a good manager. all of this was lacking on this day, and the stakes are very high. The stakes are high because 4 people were shot because of the failure to do checks and balances. That, security 101. That's what wasn't done.
So moving forward, I've directed that when we're talking to people and we're making requests, we are very specific about what we want. We are providing explicit instructions on exactly what our expectation is and what we need them to do and what we want them to do. That's the only way that we're going to be able to move forward beyond this. And let me just tell you that our state and local law enforcement partners are the best. So this belief that somehow they are less than federal law enforcement or they're less than the Secret Service. They're out there patrolling communities every day. They're the ones out there going into hazardous conditions every day. They know their communities. They have the ability to enforce state and local laws. Our advanced agents do not.
Right.
We need them, and we need them to be partners with us. And I think we need to be very clear to them, and that may have contributed to this situation.
So I made public documents that show Secret Service deployed a counter unmanned aerial system operator on July the 13th. According to the Secret Service, the drone system was supposed to be operational at 3 p.m. that day. However, we've been told by Secret Service that because of cellular bandwidth problems, it wasn't operational until about 5:20 of that day. If the system was operational, Secret Service would have had the ability to detect the shooter and his own drone use. Why is the Secret Service dependent upon local cellular network? Does the Secret Service have a backup plan in place?
Yes, thank you, Senator. And that is something that I briefed in the closed door. And again, something that has cost me a lot of sleep because of the eventual outcome of the assailant. That what if?
I just want to make a comment. This still sounds like Mickey Mouse shit. It really does. When he was talking about that they didn't really look at the reality that there could be violence in this world. Aren't you law enforcement? Aren't you the Secret Service? Isn't that why you're there? That there are bad people out there that want to shoot people. Christopher Wray has given several presentations to Congress about the enhanced threat level we live in today because of terrorism, because of active shooters. And he's given several of these to Congress. Yet we're hearing at an organization like this, Lori Lowe from the chat, a news flash came across my phone this morning that another attempt is imminent. Scares the crap out of me. I pray Trump pays for his own Secret Service from now on. Shame he has to do so, but he needs to stay safe. I think Lori Lowe, as Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, said, the threat level has been enhanced. There is a higher level of threat. There are more terrorists that have come into this country unvetted. They're all over this country free. We don't know where they are. So yes, and that's because of this threat level. But when we hear the acting head of the Secret Service say that perhaps they weren't ready because they didn't believe the reality of that something like this could actually happen, something. As a law enforcement officer, you know that any day you could get shot or you could get assaulted when you do a car stop, when you respond to a domestic violence incident. That's why in law enforcement you use the term there's no such thing as a routine car stop. And the Secret Service's motto should be there's no such thing as a routine security job or protection assignment. There's no such thing. Because plan for the unplanned. Prepare for the unexpected. And that's what your job is. And did this organization, the Secret Service, this proud organization, which, by the way, the persons that jumped on former President Trump to shield his body from potentially additional shots, they're heroes. There's no doubt the valor in that and the willingness to give up their life to protect another. So we don't want to beat up some great people that work in the Secret Service, but at the same time, we don't ever want to see this happen again. Kelly from the chat, Kelly 911, I believe they were in on it. Not all, but the ones with authority. Secret Service and FBI and CIA were all in on it. It was all planned, but it didn't work. Kelly 911, there's no evidence of that right now. That's why a thorough, complete investigation has to be done by an oversight organization, by congressmen, 6 from the Democrats, 6 from the Republicans, and they must have subpoena power and enough financing so they can investigate the investigators. That's all we want. We want a thorough investigation so that, again, this doesn't happen again. And right now, we have August, September, October. There's 4 months left to this presidential election, which is an extremely contentious election. There's a lot of hatred out there on both sides of the aisle. And therefore, we must protect our political candidates.
If we had geolocated him because that counter UAS platform had been up. It is something that I have struggled with to understand, and I have no explanation for it.
Okay.
It is something that I feel as though we could have perhaps found him. We could have maybe stopped him. Maybe on that particular day, he would have decided this isn't the day to do it because law enforcement just found me flying my drone. People fly drones all the time on the peripheries of our sites. And we go out and we talk to them and we ascertain what their intentions are. On this day in particular, because of the connectivity challenge, as you noted, there was a delay and he flew his drone at 3:51 approximately. So moving forward, we are leveraging resources.
How come the perpetrator had no problem with his drone, but the Secret Service, who should have much better and more expensive drones, couldn't fly theirs? Good, that's my question.
Sources from the Department of Homeland Security and others to make sure that we have dedicated connectivity so that we're not reliant on public domain, so that we can ensure that whatever assets we have in place, those assets are operational. And that is my commitment to you, that we're going to make sure we're going to do that. And that is something we are moving out on.
In the one question of looking backward to the event on the 13th, Director Abate, can you just talk a little bit about how did Mr. Crooks, how was he able to get an AR-15 onto the roof of that building? Does your investigation illuminate anything that we have learned to help to make that point more clear?
This question is directed to Paul Abadi, who is the second in charge at the FBI.
We don't have definitive evidence yet as to how he got the rifle up there. Based on everything that's been collected thus far, photos, video, eyewitness accounts, we do believe he likely had it in the backpack.
Broken down in the backpack?
We're still assessing that. Our laboratory has looked at the rifle itself and measured that against the backpack itself. And if placed in this backpack, it would extend outside. It would have been visible. But we don't have anyone who observed him with the backpack with a rifle barrel or other part of it sticking out of the backpack. But the rifle would not have fit fully into this backpack to be concealed and whole. We have video that was recently found of the shooter walking in a distance from his car just before 6 p.m., about 5:56, I believe. And based on everything we have, we assess that he returned to his vehicle at that time, got the backpack, and then proceeded back to the area and to the AGR building. And then he's observed, of course, on the roof, just, minutes later, holding the backpack in front of him. In fact, there's dash cam footage from a police vehicle that shows him briefly traversing the roof with the backpack in front of him. And then it's just minutes after that that he's actually seen by the officer who I described with the rifle on the roof. It's possible that he broke the rifle down, though we don't have conclusive evidence of that, and took it out of the bag on the roof in those moments before and reassembled it there. That's one of the theories we're looking at and working on right now.
So, again, we're hearing this. Someone saw him 90 minutes before this when he tried to enter with his rangefinder, Wilesy Pony, a member for 25 months. Thank God Trump didn't get hurt. Worse, I'm so sad about the fireman protecting his family. Yes, that would have been Corey Compatore, who lost his life, and 2 others who were gravely injured. The reports about, of course, the shooter, 90 minutes before the shots were actually fired, he was seen as a threat. And yet, we talk about failure of communication, a communication failure. Yet they allowed Donald Trump to go on the roof. Shooter spotted 90 minutes before the shooting. That I'm having a problem with, So is it your job, protection? Isn't it to assess threats? This person was a threat, but yet he was allowed to have almost free reign of this area. And again, we could talk about the lack of communication. That is so outrageous. Communication almost killed the former president, right? Or lack thereof, when we hear all of these different excuses, it blows your mind that this is the most elite security agency on this earth, the Secret Service, United States Secret Service. And they failed. Nita Phillips from the chat. Senator Blackburn mentioned whistleblower from Secret Service saying their culture within needs fixing, and post was deleted from server. Of course, Roe had no explanation. Guess it got wiped with a cloth. Well, Nita, we spoke about, it's right out there, and I read it at the beginning of this show. A sniper from the Secret Service sent an email to one of their big bosses saying just that. And they know who he is. And apparently he wasn't afraid to speak out because he really condemned the Secret Service and what it's become in the last few years. If you put people in the Secret Service that don't belong there, they're not qualified, or they're not physically able to do that job, then shame on you. There has to be standards. And is that what this whistleblower is saying, that there are no more standards? Is that what's happening to this Secret Service? A.M. Atkinson, you had a recent guest, Craig, retired Secret Service suspicious person would be considered a possible threat and would go interview the suspect. Of course, that's policing 101. If someone is a threat, you don't let them have the run of the location. You stop them. You find out who they were. You do who they are. You do an investigation. You start questioning them. No one should be getting a full run of that area. Gail Hurd, Corey and his family should not have even had to worry about such a thing. No greater love hath a man than to give his life for a friend. No, that's absolutely correct. Sherry Murray from the chat, is very important that we all vote for the best candidate, not just because first woman president would see through the bigger picture, correction in the government, period. Yes, well, this, what we hope also is that this protective agency known as the Secret Service ramps up their game during this election season, because there will be more threats there will be more wackos out there with a gun. There will be more active shooters. Let's hope that they've ramped up their game to the point where this will not happen again. Margaret the Younger, I just don't want to go to it. Was planned or allowed on purpose to eliminate a Trump for election. I just don't want to live in that type of country. Need and want more info before that. Look, there is no evidence at this point of a conspiracy. However, as I always preach to everyone, investigation takes time, and it's too early to just say across the board. I said to Bobby Chacon the other night, esteemed FBI agent, great guy, so experienced at all of those things, that I'm not convinced yet that the shooter, Thomas Crooks, didn't have someone helping him. But I don't mean that there was a second shooter that day. That I don't believe. I don't believe that at all. But I believe that, how did he learn how to do some of the things that he did? Okay. How did he know to recon, to do reconnaissance days before, and then on the morning of, and then the drone recon? How did he learn how to make improvised explosive devices? I know everyone says, oh, you can go on the computer, you can learn but again, he had a 2-year degree in engineering. So it wouldn't be a far stretch for him to have learned how to do that. However, some of the other things disturb me. How he learned about sort of like countermeasures, how the police would react and how he could defeat them. So he's a 20-year-old kid, and everyone gets upset at that. He's 20 years old, right? Who defeats the Secret Service and the local law enforcement, and they failed, and he completed his objective. If it was to shoot people, yes, he completed that. Amy Lou from the chat, the Secret Service and local cops weren't on the same radio channel. Easy fix. If local law enforcement is helping police a political rally, they should have immediate access to Secret Service agents by radio. Amy Lou, you're preaching to the choir. I did a whole show on that the other night, the communication failures. And how could they not be on the same radio frequency? Absolutely outrageous, you know. C. Hutch from the chat, U.S. Secret Service, FBI, we investigated ourselves and found nothing concrete to lead to criminality. Thank God we deleted correspondence and didn't allow body cams. You know, as we all know, almost every local police agency now, or large urban police forces, all have body-worn video. And what that really has resulted in is more accountability, of course, but also 99% of the time, I don't know the exact statistics, it shows that law enforcement did the right thing. And the video convinces people. C. Hutch, again, we'll be left guessing any evidence of innocence was destroyed along with potential incriminating correspondence, email, text, or video. C. Hutch, this is early on in this investigation. I'm not ready to throw out the baby with the bathwater and say it's a cover-up, it's this, that's the other thing. It's very early. This happened July 13th, right? So what do we have? 18 days ago, right? So nearly 3 weeks ago. In the life of an investigation, that's a very short period. We need more time. We need more time to find out more things. Certain things have to be subpoenaed. Certain things have to be the subject to a search warrant. All of those things take time. It's not like TV where you press the easy button, you go, oh, voila, it's done. It doesn't happen like that. Real investigation is not 40 minutes of a TV show with 20 minutes of commercials, you know? It takes time. In the real world, it takes time. I'm trying to read some of your chats, but I don't want to really get into, at least Abadi said, no doubts it was a bullet that grazed Trump's ear. Ray insinuated it was possibly shrapnel. That was a huge mistake by Ray. How could he say that when he didn't know that? And then it was proven, I think, by Trump's doctors, and it was proven, you know, if you look at that photo taken by the New York Times photographer, that you can actually see the bullet in flight, which was that he either had to be the luckiest camera shot on earth, or that he's one of the best photographers that walks on the face of this earth, that he was able to catch the bullet in flight with his camera. Just unbelievable. Let's see. Amy Lou from the chat. Mel Stiller, he wasn't inside the venue. He was outside the perimeter. First failure by Secret Service. Perimeter had easy access to straight line of sight of stage. You know, one of the things that that is good about this is that there is a level of transparency that has been delivered by the press, that here you guys are in the chat knowing more than many of the senators, knowing more than many of the Secret Service, knowing more than some of the FBI agents, because the press is, but does that mean it's all correct? That's what we need to find out. Alley Cat from the chat, in my humble opinion, Secret Service agents need to have agents assigned within a height range of 5'6" women on a detail to protect the president that is 6'3". That is just stupid. Put those women on different detail. Well, you know something. I think that the close detail for the president is usually chosen by the president, or the principal. Let's use that term, the principal. The principal usually picks his close contact group of agents that are with him every day, that protect him every day. Some law enforcement, Susie Bug, California, some law enforcement did see him because they publicized their text messages. They asked for someone to follow up with the shooter. Susie, we spoke about that, and that text message, apparently from acting director of the Secret Service, Ronald Rowe, said they never received it. So I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Many people have asked, well, why did the officer that saw him and sent that text message, why did he take for granted that that text message would be received and someone would act upon it? And that's a legitimate question. But do we then want to point the finger at the, I believe it was the Beaver County emergency service unit that counter sniper was from, who was going home at whatever it was, 4:18 or 4:22 in the afternoon, and sent that text message. But was that all he really had to do, or should he have done a little bit more? Should he have checked to make sure someone received that? Brown Green from the chat, but he wasn't identified as a threat early on, just a person of interest, suspicious. You know, Brown Green, I hate that term, person of interest. I really, because it's so ambiguous. It's such absolute bullshit. If someone is suspicious, a person of interest, let's not, and I'm not coming down on you, Brown Green. I hear that term being used all the time. Person of interest, that means he's suspicious, right? He had the rangefinder on him. All you have to do is talk to someone for 10 minutes and you can determine their state of mind. You might have talked to Thomas Crooks and said, this guy's wacky. There's something not right. This guy's missing a few cylinders of an 8-cylinder car. He's operating on about 5, you know. You may have determined that just through an interview. And that's what police work is. That's what investigation is. Talk to the guy. Question him. What are you doing here? Oh, have you been to a Trump rally before? Are you going to vote for Trump? Are you a fan of Donald Trump? Oh, you're not. What are you doing here then? Where do you live? Oh, what do you do for a living? He doesn't have to answer all your questions, but you can get a pretty damn good idea of where he's at just through a few questions. Did they do that? I don't know. I don't know if they in fact did that. But again, policing 101. And 101, Gail Hurd, thank you so much for gifting these police off-the-cuff memberships. I really appreciate that. And so do the people that are gifted these memberships. We give certain other spiffs to our members that not everyone gets, and I really appreciate that. The farmer's wife knits. The acting director threw local law enforcement under the bus. The law enforcement SWAT team has to get on TV and defend themselves. No one from Secret Service met with SWAT when they arrived on the scene. The farmer's wife knits, you're 100% correct. And no matter what the acting director of the Secret Service says, they were in charge. The buck stops with them. You cannot point fingers at another organization. You were in charge, right? The checks and balances rest with you, your command staff. You are running that event. If someone doesn't do something, you can't say, oh, I told him to do it. He didn't. Did you check? Oh, you didn't. Then it's your fault, right? So yes, I saw him do that. And I know that the local police, Secret Service, the local police sniper teams, and I think they were from Beaver County, Pennsylvania. They said the opposite that the acting director said. So we don't want this. So that's why there has to be a bipartisan investigator. DB from the chat. I'm still trying to recover from this operational failure being a lack of imagination. Really now? Isn't that why the American people pay your elite agency $3.2 billion? So disappointing. DB, 100% agree. To me, all the things that the acting Secret Service director said sound like excuses that I don't want to hear about. You know, this is a zero failure organization, meaning failure is not an option in this instance. So for him, Guy from the chat, I saw the sheriff of that town do an interview and he sounded pissed that the locals were getting the blame. Guy, and he should be, because again, the Secret Service is in charge. The local law enforcement are there to assist you. They are not in charge. You are in charge. This is your security plan. This is your operation. This is your planning. Concentric circles they talk about perimeters, layered security. That's part of the plan to make it more and more difficult as you get closer and closer to the principal. Those protocols were not followed, and tremendous amounts of failure existed in this. Just absolutely existed. We the captain now. Thank you for the 199 super sticker. Rumor is agent in charge on the ground was a female. Whether it was a male or a female doesn't matter. There's very, very competent females. There's very, very competent males, and there's incompetent of both sexes too. So we're not interested. We want to know, how did these failures happen, and to make sure that they never happen again. Senator Hall, he wants blood. He wants people fired. He wants people identified. You know, if we use those same standards for Congress, there would be no congressmen or women. They'd all get fired. So, yeah, people died in this instance, and it's a zero-sum game. You cannot make a mistake. You cannot fail. Failure is not an option. Greg Martinez, well, I'm not going to lie to myself. They let the little flower on the roof, and they let him take a shot. They let this happen. They wanted this to happen on every line of defense was taken down. Greg, you know something? I can't agree with you. I can't go with that. We don't have evidence of that now. Certainly, the mistakes that were made were amateur mistakes, amateuristic. And unless we find out that it's something more than amateur mistakes, and because you don't expect the Secret Service to be amateurs, do you? Lobo from the chat, is it true he had 3 encrypted overseas accounts with dollars? If true, how many of you have the same? Lobo, I've heard about encrypted devices. I don't know the results, if they were able to break into those encrypted devices yet. So until we know that, we cannot just, again, I'll use that word, assume. And we all know to assume is to make an ass of you and me. And when you hear professionals use that word assume, it's bad news, you know. Daniel Burke, no one on the roof because didn't want to upset shooter. Woke feelings could have been hurt. Daniel, again, there's no evidence that this is a major screw up, but no evidence of malice at this point. And I'm not saying down the road they may find that there is a connection to someone who helped this would-be active shooter and Thomas Crooks, because he wasn't there just to shoot former President Trump. He had 90 rounds. He had 3 magazines with 30 rounds each in them. So I believe he was what's known as an active shooter. Nita Phillips, they should know by now what agents left post overlooking building and who told them to leave. Can't imagine they don't know the answers by now. Nita Phillips, of course they know the answers. Of course they have a preliminary investigative findings, but they're not complete. So they do not want to release their preliminary investigative findings until they cross their T's and dot their I's. And is there protection of their compadres, of their fellow Secret Service agents? I think yes. I think any law enforcement organization is looking to defend their associates, defend their compadres, their fellow Secret Service agents. But if there turns out to be malice or huge mistakes by certain individuals, there needs to be accountability. And I think that's what all of these senators and congressmen are talking about, accountability. Narnian Railway, wonder who did Cheadle speak with at Aspen Security Forum after her RNC appearance. I don't know the answer to that. Barbara Ann, that kid was willing to die. Most of us are not. Well, most active shooters, they either get shot by police or they commit suicide. Most of the time, that is the results of this. Brown Green, he was just a guy with a semi-automatic rifle who evaded security and then got lucky because the roof was unguarded. You know, Brown Green, I would, Bobby Chacon, experienced FBI agent, believes that. I don't believe that. I think he knew a little more. He planned for this. This was not just, I'm going out to this rally and I'm going to shoot Trump and I'm going to shoot people. There was some planning that went on before this. And I want to know, did he plan by himself or did someone help him? Mama Morris, a psychologist podcast, broke down the shoot's psychology. Essentially, he said that Trump represented the type of people who have bullied the shooter throughout his life. You know, I mean, I think it's too early for these psychologists to jump on and start analyzing people that you know nothing about. They're just analyzing sort of a personality, like a personality of an active shooter. Oh, this is what every active shooter does. I don't know. Ronaldo Anjois, listen to Peak Prosperity. They analyzed the shots and proved that the first 3 shots sounds different than the next 5. The first 3 are the only shots that actually hit something. Ronaldo Anjois, I hope I'm pronouncing your words right. First of all, I think that the fact that there was 8 spent shell casings on the scene, on that roof, shows that the sniper fired 8 times. I don't think you can really argue that because, in addition, there were ballistics tests done on the spent shells. The firing pin on the primer will tell the story whether each one of those spent cartridges came from the rifle that was also found on the roof next to the 8 cartridges. So there's the 8 shots. So all the sound technicians. So and then who else fired? Was it 2 snipers returned fire or was it 3? There's your different sound, your different ballistic sound theory right there. So, you know, I think that people have to hold off and let's await the full investigation. The mainstream from the chat, this will come out after investigation if true, but some security claimed day 2 that Crooks was chumming up to Department of Homeland Security agents at the shooting range who may have provided info inadvertently in talks. The mainstream, I've never heard that. I can't verify if that's true or not. We did, apparently, Crooks did tell his father that he wanted to take the AR-15 because he wanted to go to the range to go shooting. Did he go to the range that day? Or was this on another day you're referring to? I don't know if, in fact, he went to the range that day. The other question we have, can and should the parents of Thomas Crooks be prosecuted? It happened in another state, but Thomas Crooks is considered to be an adult, right? The shooter from that other state, I believe, was less than 16. So is there accountability for the parents of Thomas Crooks? Margaret DeYounger, at Police Off the Cuff, Sergeant Bill Cannon, mods, thank you again. Always provide safe place to come hear facts, not drama, and sharing your over 20 years professional experience and analysis in NYPD. Margaret DeYounger, thank you so much. I hope you subscribed, Margaret. Hope you're one of our new subscribers to this channel. Susie Bug, I think they're first taking out their anger on the wrong guy, and second, they have to appear this way for their voters, in my humble opinion. Guys, what I think is important is that we wait for the results of the investigation, because from the chat, cocksureness, there will be more whistleblowers. Well, if the Secret Service is really in as bad shape as the sniper who sent that email in and describing the Secret Service as a disaster, if that is true, then you're 100% correct. There will be more whistleblowers, And of course, communication breakdown. Beaver County SWAT and Secret Service never communicated. How about the fact that the Secret Service and the local police SWAT teams never met before the event, never had a meeting before the event? And they were all baffled by that. They had never seen that happen before. So numerous mistakes. And as the investigation proceeds, I'm sure we're going to hear about more and more. And maybe the FBI will come up with more investigative information that may connect this to others. It's early in the investigation, right? This happened July 13th. So this is not quite 3 weeks ago. So all of those things, the Secret Service agent that sent this email, in the Newsweek article, he says, sadly, we have fallen short for years. We just got lucky and looked good doing it. The email said, it added that the individuals had conveyed these thoughts to both supervisors and training teams, who brushed off his concerns as if those with less experience somehow knew more than me. The team I was once proud to be part of is something I have to now somehow hide as I move into my next career, the email read. So that would say to me that this this sniper, he intends to leave the Secret Service. So that's maybe why he feels free to be a whistleblower, free to come out and criticize. So multiple investigations into the assassination attempt are ongoing. So as we know, FBI Director Wray testified. Kimberly Cheadle, the former director of the Secret Service, testified. And the acting director of the Secret Service testified and was a little bit combative, I guess. And I wouldn't, I don't know if I would want to be questioned by Hawley or Senator Cruz, but he's obviously used to being a boss. He's not used to being yelled at. He's not used to having his credibility and having his integrity questioned. Star Child, 1974, there's a new video from a guy near the rooftop watching crooks and the police. Dave Stewart is his name. He took video, which everyone is showing, but he said he heard on the the Pennsylvania police radio. A lot of these things will be coming out. Maria Albanese from the chat. My godson was killed by his friend and it was his father's gun. He was 19 and went to jail, but no criminal charges to the dad. I'm sorry to hear that, Maria Albanese. What a horror that is, losing your godson. Meredith, yes, Thomas' parents should be out in jail, no doubt about it. That shooter lived in their house, but I don't know if that's a violation of the law, Meredith. He was an adult. The gun was legally owned, so I don't know if I don't think that's a violation of the law. C. Hutch from the chat, I'm not convinced you can go after the parents, only if solid evidence warrants. Well, exactly, C. Hutch. That's what I was just speaking to. So, we're going to stay with this case. Pamela White, I still want to know why the one sniper took a picture of this guy, Crooks, in the roof and sent it around right then, but no reaction from his cohorts. That's a question we all have. There's so many unanswered questions. And I think in a way, Star Child 1974, mind you, they keep saying Trump had extra added threats from Iran. So wouldn't you for sure give him more Secret Service detail than someone who doesn't have a high threat level? Star Child 1974, it's the Secret Service that determines whether to enhance the security based on the threat level. Yes, that would make sense, but they are the decision makers, not us. They are the professionals at this, not us. Adriana Rischer, we asked the criminals to investigate themselves. I don't understand and way no one talked about on House. Costas Giannoulis, respectfully, we waited for investigation results from Vegas. 3 pages and all bold. We never found out the motive from Vegas. You're 100% right. And we may never find out the motive of this either. Prying Paula from the chat, if my child didn't return home from the gun range, I would just assume they'd have stopped to see a friend or went shopping. I wouldn't have called law enforcement unless they'd been missing for many hours. Referring to the parents of Thomas Crooks calling the police and reporting their son missing. Yes, that's a little strange. Pharaoh Gamma from the chat. Donald Trump had received death threats because of eliminating Iranian Qasem Soleimani with a drone during his presidency. Why wasn't Trump given consideration for more agents? Well, that's the questions that the acting head of the Secret Service is being asked. Chris Pia need old street crime cops with street smarts and Secret Service details in plain clothes doing roving patrols. Also, this has some BlackRock connections that are not mentioned in these hearings. There's all kinds of Prying Paula from the chat. Bill, do we really think that this was a coincidence that just happened to an unmanned building with a direct line of sight to the president when there just happened to be a shooter coming that day? Prying Paula, I'm not ready to say it wasn't any of the above. However, I'm ready to wait to the completion of the investigation to determine what this is. I don't think it's healthy really to throw out conspiracy theories. We can surely ask questions and say, that looks bad. This looks bad. That looks bad. Oh my God, this looks worse. Yes, we could say all of those things, but to jump right to this was a conspiracy, they let this happen, they allowed this to happen, that sort of puts beside human error, which there was so much human error in this case as to be absolutely outrageous and hard to believe. Mama Morris from the chat. His parents were mental health professionals and I think knew something wasn't right with him. Therefore got nervous when he didn't come home. Mama Morris, isn't that crazy? If they knew something wasn't right with him from a mental health perspective, why did they allow him to have guns? These are questions that need to be asked and answered. And I'm sure the Secret Service, the FBI interviewed the parents on numerous occasions. So whether they satisfactorily got the answers to their questions, I don't 100% know. Folks, I want to thank everyone for coming by today. And again, if you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube, hit the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, and hit the like button. And if you want to contribute to us financially, of course, we have a Patreon, 4 different levels. And we also have a YouTube channel membership. You saw a person here giving away some channel memberships, which thank you so much for doing that. And that helps us keep this show going every day. We're going to keep an eye on this case as the investigation proceeds. And until then, I want everyone to have a wonderful day. God bless. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories.
One episode just ain't enough.